Kerry Elliman from Greyhound Protection in the UK. I'm here with Michael James from Cage Nationwide. We're at Shanghai Wildlife Park in China to see the tattooed greyhounds that are behind us. Since 2011, 111 greyhounds were imported from Australia, possibly Ireland. So we're trying to work with the guys who work here and the manager to offer rescue space. Rescue space for the greyhounds that are here, and to speak about not racing the greyhounds anymore. There's no animal welfare law, which we all know in China. All these dogs are tattooed. They're in runs. Some of them are really old. There's no water. Obviously they do have water at some point, but it's about 31 degrees at the moment. We've got no water in the runs. You can hear the greyhounds crying in the back. There's kennels at the top as well, with all the doors locked. There's no water, no windows, and a lot of these greyhounds are lame as well, because they keep lifting the legs up. So we'll obviously update you tomorrow or later if we've got any more information once we've met the manager.
Today's podcast will focus on the work of Candy Cane Rescue, a nonprofit registered charity that was started back in June of 2017 by Kerry Elliman, founder of Greyhound Protection UK. Candy Cane Rescue aims to provide a safe environment in which greyhounds and other breeds rescued from the Chinese meat trade and underground racing tracks can be cared for. While their area of focus remains China, they have rescued dogs from the Vietnamese meat trade, from South Korea, galgos from Spain, and hounds from Cyprus, Romania, and Russia. Greyhounds are also exported to the Shanghai Wildlife Park, where they are fed alive to big cats and other predators and forced to race against cheetahs for entertainment. That is very troubling. I mean, when I read that, I was like horrified, but when they have outlived their usefulness, many end up in the meat trade to be beaten, hung, boiled, and skinned alive. When Candy Cane Rescue's namesake, Candy, was killed by another dog in the rescue center a day before she was due to fly to the UK to be homed, Carrie decided she needed to have a better control over the recovery phase and established Candy Cane Rescue to ensure that the dogs rescued can be kenneled and cared for safely until they are well enough to travel. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Carrie.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for taking your time today and share with us your experience, the work that you do. Because, you know, this is a different aspect of the meat trade in China, because the podcast has covered pretty extensively the dog cat meat trade in China, South Korea, Cambodia, Vietnam. But the fact that you're rescuing greyhounds, and they're often used for racing, we all know that it's deplorable, and it happens still to this day. It's very grueling what these greyhounds go through. So it's going to be great to hear from you their story and what we can do, and hopefully to spell an end to that. Okay. So, but before we get into the details of our conversation today, I always like to have a background note on our guests, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind telling us where were you born and raised, and how did you get involved with animal rescue?
So I was born in Birmingham in the UK, and I always, as a real small child, looked after animals, collected animals, stray dogs and things. And in my 20s, I had 5 cats and wanted a dog. So someone suggested a greyhound. So I went to my local rehoming centre, adopted a greyhound called Andy. And then I just started looking into greyhound welfare in the UK and Ireland. And what happens to these dogs when they stop racing or when they're no good to race. So I started up Greyhound Protection UK, which was Birmingham Greyhound Protection at the time, which that's anti-racing, and I'm anti-greyhound racing. And we actively campaign against the racing industry to ban exports of greyhounds and to also get greyhound racing banned. And then I started hearing about greyhounds being exported to China, and then I started looking into that. And I suggested, could greyhounds be in the meat trade in China? And people basically laughed at me and said no one would eat a greyhound. There's nothing on them, which is crazy. And that's how it started, really. I started working with a rescuer in China to help.
Yes, well, we're going to get into those details when we talk about your foundation, but give me an idea. So at 20 years old, you want a dog and you adopt
in my 20s, yeah.
Yes. And so how long did it take for you to really dig into the problem of greyhounds and how they're exploited for racing and all that stuff? Was it like a few years or?
No, I've always been into animal rights, so pretty soon. And I've come from a family that raced greyhounds as well. So I remember growing up, and my granddad used to have greyhounds in his back garden, and my uncles raced greyhounds, and some of them still do now as well. So once I found out what happens to the dogs, obviously I wanted to do more.
Yes, absolutely. Because the problem of greyhounds used for racing, it dates back to what year? Like, when did we first hear about this problem?
The exports or what happens to racing?
Well, the racing itself, because it happens in many countries, not just China. Obviously, it's everywhere, a little bit everywhere. What are the prominent countries that do greyhound racing?
Ireland, the UK, Australia. Obviously, it's just been banned in the US now. But they're the main countries. Ireland and Australia, definitely. They're the ones who have got the more dogs and breed more greyhounds than any other country.
Wow. So you were right in the middle of this, like you're living in the UK and you want to help make a difference. And when did you hear about them being involved in the dog meat trade in China? Like, was it like much later? Or?
Yeah, about 5 years ago. I don't know if you ever heard of the Canidrome in Macau. Have you heard of that?
What is it called?
The Canidrome in Macau.
Ah, okay, no.
Now. Okay, so in Macau there was a racetrack and it was known as the deadliest greyhound track in the world. Greyhounds were exported there from Australia, and then we found out Irish was starting to export them. So lots of people started campaigning to get this stopped, and thankfully it's closed down now.
And Macau, Macau's a more cosmopolitan city, and
and gambling's really big.
Yeah.
So this track used to kill 30 dogs a month. So it's closed now, but because it's so close to China. I was just asking the question: are greyhounds ever in the meat trade? And that's how I started looking into it then.
阿叻咧就係阿叻點解嚟我屋企咧？佢係7月1號，有個叫做日院搞咗個領養日，就帶同我啲小朋友一齊去睇，就見到阿叻啊個樣，我女中意隻狗，我就領養翻嚟咯。其實我一心係想幫佢咯，其實我想即係幫見佢咁多狗喺度，唔知之後佢會點嘅。不如我幫得一隻得一隻，我就會變咗一隻啦。
This international rehoming center will take care of these animals forever. Plus, will be also responsible for saving greyhounds in China that are in a risk situation, including meat market. My business is to have a good solution for those greyhounds.
Okay, so that was 5 years ago, so I would assume like 2015, 2016. And now I want to talk obviously about Candy Cane Rescue, and in the opening remarks, I did mention why you named Candy Cane Rescue. Candy was one of the dogs that you rescued. Can you tell us a little bit more about that story? And it was a Candy Greyhound in China?
Yeah, so I didn't actually rescue her. I helped a local girl in Beijing, and I said I would bring her to the UK with another 6 dogs to rehome them through my UK rescue.
Okay.
And Candy was rescued from a meat market
The dog meat
over
train.
December, and she had 3 broken legs. And it took a long time for her to recover because she was in such a bad way. And she did, she finally recovered. I had a home waiting for her in the UK. And literally the day before she was due to travel, a dog killed her in boarding kennels, which is obviously really devastating. So I just decided then that I needed to do more and try and protect them once they're rescued, because it's easy to rescue the dogs. It's keeping them safe afterwards.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the biggest challenge in China, and getting them out of China.
And was the rescuer at the time in Beijing, you said, was it Dowie, the one that you're working with currently?
Her name's Dodo.
Dodo. Dodo.
Yeah.
I don't want to mispronounce her name. So Dodo. And she was the one that had rescued Candy, or
Yeah, she had, yeah.
And so you decided right then and there that something had to change. You had to have better control, and so you established Candy Cane Rescue. And can you tell us a little bit more about, first of all, how did you encounter Dodo? Like, she reached out to you, or was it the opposite?
No, when I had suspicions that greyhounds were in the meat trade, I just started going through social media, going through social media sites, going through social media websites, just making contacts all around the world really about greyhounds in the meat trade. And then I come across Dodo, because she had rescued some greyhounds, and it just started from there.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so through social media, I mean Facebook or that sort of thing?
Yeah, Facebook mostly.
And I mean, the immediate question I have is like, was she able to speak English? I mean, what about the language barrier?
Yeah,
How do you communicate?
She spent a lot of years in Canada, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
My country.
She spent a lot of years in Canada. I think she went to university, I believe, or college in Canada. So her English is really... She can't actually understand me sometimes.
She
It's not
can't
me not understand me.
Oh, because of your
sometimes. It's not-
accent, right. That's
it's
a
not
bit
the
of
other
a
way around.
bridge.
Yeah.
And she, it's surprising because, I mean, she's young. I'm sure she's a younger person.
Yeah, she is 34.
She's
She's
34?
34. Yeah, she's 34. But she only found out about the dog meat trade in China about 5 years ago. She didn't know nothing about
That's the
it.
thing. I had another guest on my show, Suki Su, who's the director of the Animal Hope and Wellness China shelter. And she had never heard about Yulin Dog Meat Festival, never heard about dog meat trade until she moved to England to study graphics or computer design. And that she heard it through a BBC documentary. It
Yeah,
just
it's amazing.
goes to show. And so immediately you think it's not that prevalent. That means it's not that common. But other guests have said, oh no, it is very common in China. Like there's dog meat restaurants just about everywhere. It's not just the periphery of the country. It's like central China. It's everywhere. What would you
I think
say?
so. It is quite common, but equally, there's so many people in China.
Yes.
You know, more people don't eat dogs than do, and are
Yeah.
mortified by what's going on.
Yeah.
And lots of people just don't know. So when we're at Beijing airport bringing dogs back, I've had Chinese people crying and in tears because they cannot believe that I've got dogs with me that are going to slaughter. So I think it is a lot of people, but it's because there's a lot of people in China, but most of the people don't eat dogs. And I think it's quite easy for people to kind of bash China and say they're all cruel, they're all heartless. But some of the most kindest people I've ever met are in China.
Absolutely. I think, with my guests, we've established at this point that we should not engage in those kind of hate posts
No,
and
no, no.
messages to China, because it's not just China, it's all over
Yeah.
Asia Pacific. And also, it's not that we're shaming China, we're shaming the practice. And the dog academy trade is shameful. And that's what we're shaming. It's if Canada had the same dog academy trade, I would be with everyone saying this is unacceptable. So it's not that we're shaming or pointing the finger at China, and that has to be
No,
understood.
it is unacceptable. But equally, I've been to the slaughterhouses in China, and they're no different really from slaughtering pigs, cows, lambs. You know, in the UK, you hang a cow upside down and slit its throat. It's just, it's just as bad. It's the difference with China is there's no welfare laws.
Yeah.
So if you literally want to go and take a dog in the street and skin it alive, you can.
That's it.
And
That's it.
and you kind of see that people get immune to it almost. They, like, when I've been to the meat markets, there's fish in like an inch of water. There's rabbits, chickens, dogs, cats. People selling their dogs and cats for meat.
Yeah.
And you see people selling the dogs, and these people are so poor as well. So
Yes.
some people are selling them because they're ill or they're old. Lots of people are so poor that it's just really bizarre. It's like being on another planet when you go there. But then you go to Beijing, and it's a big fabulous city,
I know.
and you kind of forget where you are a little bit then.
There's a bit of a, like big contrast between the big urban areas, and then you have I had a guest recently from Wuhan, and she said it's very prevalent. People have little kiosks on the streets with dogs hanging, dog carcasses hanging. And like you said, it's a question that people were brought up seeing this day in, day out, and so they became desensitized to the pain and suffering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I grew up walking past butchers with pig carcasses hanging up, and as a
Yeah.
young child, I knew that was wrong. Whereas,
Well,
it's not really much different. If you grow up with it, it's not anything different really. It's just we as companions. And I agree, they shouldn't get eaten, they shouldn't get killed. And it's the way they kill them as well. Not so much the slaughterhouses, because the slaughterhouses are providing a service, so they do kill them quick. They either stab them or beat them over the head.
they don't.
It's usually
They don't.
they do.
They do.
Yeah, they do. That's usually how they kill them. That's common practice. It's more like the little villages where the dogs really get tortured, and there's a new thing at the moment called barbecue dog, and it's grilled dog actually it's called, and it's like on a big barbecue, and they just throw the dogs on there alive.
Like in the fire pit type of thing.
It's like a big barbecue, so they're on like a grill, and then they start cooking the dog.
Alive.
Yeah.
And what part of China does that happen?
It's kind of on the outskirts.
Okay. More
I've
like
never seen that.
Guangdong region.
Yeah,
that kind
I've
of-
never seen that because I couldn't see that.
Yeah, that sounds horrifying. But I think while we're on this topic, I'm really curious because you've been to China yourself, like clearly.
Yeah, lots of times.
Many times? Okay, so you are able to confirm this, but I've had this recurring question, because a lot of my viewers and myself included, I discovered the dog cat meat trade only in 2018, and it was through Yulin Dog Meat Festival. So I saw all the images. I mean, the images date back probably to 2014, 2016. Those were the big years, 2017. But it's the images that really troubled me. I mean, it was the outright torture, the deliberate intent to cause harm. And that's what has us all up in arms and outrage, right? So it's that deliberate torture. But you're saying that it, and other guests have confirmed that slaughterhouses are very similar to, you know, the practices that we see in other countries. So it's not like they're torturing the dogs. They don't have time. And Dr. Peter J. Lee was on the podcast and he said, listen, these people are there to make business, to make money. They don't have time to torture a dog for hours on end. But the torture does happen, and it does happen in more rural areas where it's more like a small scale operation. And, you know, they have this belief that the more suffering the dog endures, the more adrenaline runs through his blood before death, that the meat will be better. It'll be more of a tonic for health. And is that something that you've witnessed or that you've heard as well?
I have, but equally, there's if you're in a country with no animal welfare laws, and you know everywhere's got people that are naturally cruel individuals, and if you know you can't get punished for that, you know it's
a free
reign to do whatever you like. It's really bad. I've been to the meat markets as well, and I think the thing with dogs is they know. You know, some of these have been pets for the whole life.
Yes.
Some of them, because they don't breed dogs in China for meat. Not to my knowledge, it's not meat farms, it's ex-breeding dogs, it's ex-pets. For the greyhounds, they're used for racing on the underground tracks and hunting, and also the police use greyhounds to collect stray dogs, which I find that horrific. We've had a few greyhounds that have been used for that, and even now they would kill a small dog.
I didn't quite get that. So the police in China use greyhounds to kill other strays?
Collect stray dogs,
Oh my God. And how does that work? Like, I'm not sure.
Greyhounds are trying to catch small animals, so they're trained in China with live bait. I've seen lots of videos of greyhounds running out in packs and they have a dog thrown to them and then they kill the dog. They'll tie like a little poodle to a rope and get the greyhounds to chase the poodle attached to the rope. So then when they're out and they see a dog, then they go and catch it.
Oh my Lord. It's like you said, it's a big problem that they have no animal welfare laws, and obviously the authorities themselves, they will often kill strays in an effort to try to contain rabies spread, but it's an ill attempt because we know that that's not the way to do it, and the only true way to stop rabies from spreading is vaccination, and unfortunately it's a lot of misconceptions, lack of education, lack of know-how, and rumors that have been fed from from word to mouth, and it's a bit disconcerting that this is such a bad environment to have animals in, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
The hope we have is that, like Dodo, that your partner in China, is that younger people are becoming much more influenced by Western culture. The idea that
Absolutely.
a dog is a pet, it's a companion animal, and it's not for fruit.
But then you've got the complete extreme where you've got Chinese people that put shoes on the dogs, put coats on the dogs, put little bows in the head. So it goes from one extreme to the other. Some people don't even let the dogs walk in the street, and my friend Dodo, she actually gets scared to even walk her dogs in case they get taken, in case the police sees them, because that seems to be a reoccurring issue as well in China, that dogs just get seized from the police and then they don't get them back then.
And they get seized for different reasons, but one of them is that in urban cities, this is what I've heard, you can confirm that a dog beyond a certain height, like 35
17
centimeters.
inches.
17
inches.
17 inches, they get called away. And calling
Yeah.
means killing, you know. So,
Yeah.
and also, I think it's a rule that it's one dog per household. And if you have more than one dog, as some
Yeah.
rescuers do, if they get
Yeah.
any complaints from the police, they will come and
The
seize your
neighbours as well.
dogs. And
Yeah.
okay, so this
Yeah.
is a common problem.
And it's brutal, yeah.
It's the whole thing is brutal, but it's good to hear it from you because the more guests you talk to, you get a better understanding, and there's a common thread that you can establish. So we know what's
Yeah.
fiction from like myth from reality.
Yeah.
And so Dodo, is she? What part of China is she in?
Beijing.
Okay, she's in Beijing, and so most of
She's
her.
she's she's, she's from Inner Mongolia, but she lives in Beijing.
Okay, and how long, how many years has she been back to China? Because she was in Canada for her studies and.
I'm not 100% sure, but
Okay.
it's about 10 years.
And you met her or encountered her through social media how many years ago?
4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, started talking to her on social media. So we flew 3 dogs the other day,
Oh,
a
wow.
greyhound and 2 whippets.
And to the
So that's to
UK?
try and
To
no
the,
to Beijing. So then when they're
oh.
in Beijing, then they get prepped. So they
Ah,
get all the veterinary work done, all the bloods done, all the vaccinations,
right.
neutering, and any because a lot of greyhounds suffer with broken legs because of how skinny they are. When they're getting shoved in the cages and things, the legs go straight through. So if they're throwing the cages around, then the legs will just snap.
And that's common. I heard that in transportation, a lot of dogs will die of suffocation. They are
Yeah,
cramped so tightly, and the limbs are often broken to
yeah.
fit in the cage. If it's not done by the trader to fit them in the cage, it will happen in transportation. But I'm just curious, when you say you rescue all over China, how do you coordinate this? Like I'm like, you know, you're in the UK and you have contacts throughout China or
Yeah. So like Dodo, obviously she speaks Chinese, so she
yes.
will contact the shelters or the rescues or where these dogs are,
Okay.
and then that's how we get them to Beijing. We either send a driver and pay a driver, because we've got a driver over there,
Okay.
or we fly them out to Beijing.
Wow. And in Beijing, do you have a shelter? I guess you have some
Um,
kind of center.
Well, actually, this time last year, we found land to build a shelter, and we started doing fundraising. We employed a worker, and then COVID hit, and that's just put a stop to everything because first it was locked down in Beijing,
Yeah.
and now it's locked down in the UK again. So all our fundraising stopped. We have no finances coming in. So at the moment, that's on hold. So all the dogs are in boarding kennels.
Wow. I know because we're February 6th today, and I saw a video, a plea for donations because you're like at a all-time stop. Like
Yeah,
COVID has hit us from many directions. I mean, it's put
yes,
the global economies on pause. Some people have lost their jobs from it.
yeah.
And whenever you have a situation like that, obviously some donors can no longer give, or it's just more
Mm.
tight. And every rescue has been hit, you know, some to different
Yeah,
degrees. But yours it really did touch my heartstrings because you're like at a point where like we had to say no to a group of dogs.
yeah,
You had to turn them down because you have no money to do this. So
yeah,
and that's one of the points that I always bring up on the podcast and to people that are wanting to help is that you can't just help by signing petitions, right? Signing petitions has a very limited impact on this.
yeah,
And a petition to your government, to your local government, perhaps that would have more pressure, but a petition from foreigners to China, a country like China, is going to be pretty minimal.
oh
And
yeah, it's
so,
will have no impact at all.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
pointless.
And so I say, if you want to help, I mean, one of the best ways you can help is to give money. Like, don't just give a thumbs up or share. If that's all you can do, sharing is fantastic because it does expose the issue. But, you know, put your money where your mouth is, and
Yeah,
even if,
even £1, £2.
exactly,
If
and people,
you know, I think people think if they can't donate a lot, it's not going to make an impact.
exactly.
But if 30,000 people donated £1,
That's
you know,
it.
it's
I always say that. I said, you know, I have started campaigns where it's like a dollar campaign. Everyone can afford a dollar. Like even, you know, people that are not doing so well financially, they can afford a dollar if they want to support this cause. And if
yeah,
everyone gave a dollar, we would amass a lot of money. But another point that I want to make is that you are much more in need of monthly donations because you
absolutely.
know, you can't plan and forecast anything if you don't know when the money is coming from and when the next $100. So if somebody's willing to give $100, it's best that they spread it out monthly and do it
Yeah,
that way. Even if it's a $5 a month donation, at least you can count on that, you know? I think
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
important for people to understand. And so I would just like for you to explain a little bit more about the exploitation of greyhounds. And you work in China principally, but you've also rescued dogs, greyhounds from other countries. And, you know, what is this issue when these greyhounds are exported, and what countries export them mostly? Did you name them
Um,
already?
Ireland is massive for
Yeah.
exporting the greyhounds. The UK also. Australia, but they did bring a passport ban in Australia not to export greyhounds to Vietnam, China, places like that. But dogs are still getting through. So at the moment, we've found over 700 Australian greyhounds in China on a
Wow.
database. Ireland export greyhounds to India, Pakistan, China, Romania, Spain. You know, basically with racing greyhounds, it's all about the bloodline. So if you race a greyhound, people want the bloodline and the top dog,
Okay.
and that comes from Ireland and Australia.
And so it's a question of money. These people are
Yeah,
exporting,
absolutely.
and the government has to take a stand, like to prevent this. What is?
But under Candy Cane's a registered charity, so I'm not allowed to campaign politically. So I'm anti-racing, and my UK rescue is anti-racing, and that's who I campaign with to stop the export of greyhounds. Candy Cane, we can save the dogs, and I can speak about the exports, but we don't actively campaign because it's political.
Okay, so you're a bit limited on that front, but
With Candy Cane because it's a registered charity,
yeah.
but with my other rescue, it's just a non-profit organisation and it's a campaign group, so I can.
But what steps have you done? Like, have you been in talks with your local MPs to try to, you know, stop the
Yeah,
export part?
again, before COVID, we was at number 10 Downing Street, speaking to politicians then, and they was really enthusiastic on helping getting a ban on the exports.
Yeah.
We do lots of demos. We stand outside the Irish embassy. I've also tried contacting the Chinese embassy about the greyhounds in Shanghai Wildlife Park, but no one even answered me. I constantly was messaging them,
Yeah.
emailing, ringing. So the problem is COVID's put a big stop on everything.
Yeah.
Usually every year we do lots of demos, lots of organisations get involved, and like marches, contact MPs. But at the moment, COVID's just on the top of
Yeah.
everyone's priority, so it's put a big step back. But I do believe greyhound racing it's on the decline massively in the UK and Ireland.
So,
Like we've seen in America already, it's gone.
so from the moment that you started these campaigns, because I'm sure you didn't start them right before COVID. I mean, it's been many years. Have you seen progress? The response from MPs is positive. They want to help you pass this
Yeah,
law?
especially in Ireland, there's lots of politicians that are really backing it. Um, the problem is a lot of politicians are also involved in greyhound racing in Ireland.
Yeah.
Um,
Any?
so that's a big problem. And also they have coursing in Ireland as well. So last year we rescued a coursing greyhound from Spain. She'd been dragged behind a vehicle for 18 miles, and she was registered to a politician in Ireland.
Oh my Lord. In Spain? So
Yeah.
he has a dog in a race there or something.
They use them for breeding over there and hunting. So I'll get lots of dogs from Spain. So they send them over there, and because greyhounds are tattooed, you can trace the owners, and they don't even change ownerships; they just sell them. So, that's a big thing that I do. And same with China. I've managed to get 3 Irish greyhounds back to the UK. And I think 9 Australian dogs we've rescued, because it's very important to say the exported dogs don't go to the meat trade. They're too expensive. They use them to breed. They literally will breed these dogs until they drop. It's the offsprings of the exported dogs that end up in the meat trade.
Okay. So it's basically they're exporting them for the purpose of racing them. Like that's the primary purpose.
Yeah,
Breeding
so
them for racing.
breeding them
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
racing on
yeah,
the
that's
underground
right.
tracks. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and I'm like, so it's so a bit discouraging because you've been doing this for how many years at this point? Like,
15, 16 years now.
are you more hopeful now than you were at the start? Like, have you seen progress on?
The problem is, the more you look into something, the more of a can of worms you open, don't you,
Yeah,
really?
it's like
That's
going
the
down a
problem.
rabbit hole. Right?
Yeah, so originally I just thought of greyhound racing in the UK and Ireland, and then before I know it, I realised how bad it is. So I can see progress in the UK especially.
Okay.
Ireland are a bit more behind us in so 80% of the dogs in the UK are bred in Ireland.
Oh,
So if
okay.
we can get greyhound racing banned in the UK, essentially that will finish greyhound racing in Ireland as well.
Yeah, so I guess that's something that you can tackle or try to, put your
Yeah,
energy
it
on.
is getting better, and people are starting to realise that greyhounds are dogs, not just racing machines. Because in Ireland, especially, it's only been recent years that people even adopt dog greyhounds in Ireland. Even the UK, 30
Wow,
years ago, they wasn't seen as pets. They were killed when they were 4 years old. Once they
wow.
stopped racing, but then people started rescuing them and speaking up for them.
I personally, I've happened to go on a channel that is promoting greyhounds. I forgot the name of it, but the videos are so beautiful, and these dogs are so beautiful, and apparently they make great pets. I mean, I don't know if you can corroborate this. I'm sure you could. They sleep a lot. Is
Yeah,
that the case? Yeah.
yeah, they probably sleep about 20 hours a day.
Wow. So
They're
see,
so
that
lazy.
sounds like a perfect dog for me because, I'm
Yeah,
often very busy. I have a full-time
they're
job
so lazy.
and
So. I mean, I've got 8 dogs in my house now. Usually I
eight,
have about, yeah,
eight.
but usually I have about 15
Oh my
greyhounds.
God. And
And you'd walk in my house, you wouldn't know there's a dog here. They're all fast asleep.
wow. So that sounds like the perfect dog for me. Like,
They are
honestly,
great.
for someone who doesn't have the energy, because dogs are obviously more, take a lot more work than cats. Like I have 2 cats at home. And my husband, when I discovered the dog cat meat trade, I was hell bent on getting a survivor of this meat trade. And he said, "You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You have no idea what it's like to have a dog. Forget about sleeping in, forget about all this. The dog will dominate your hours, your time. You have to walk them at least twice a day. So yes, I mean, I think I'd be ready to do that, but a greyhound that sleeps 20 hours, I mean, that sounds perfect. protecting
Yeah,
me.
they're really. I mean, my dogs went out this morning for about an hour and 10 minutes walk,
Yeah.
and they've slept pretty much all day.
So you have them on a schedule. I guess they're all up at the same time, type of thing.
Yeah, well, I've got three very small children.
Oh,
So I
wow.
try and walk them. I try and walk them early. And depending on how many dogs I've got, we usually do about 5 walks in the morning. And
Wow.
because the dogs I have here at the moment are not from China, they're Irish Greyhounds. So we have to muzzle them at first because they've just come off the racetracks or coursing.
Ah,
So
yes.
just to protect like cats, dogs, and get them socialised. That's the main thing.
And I'm sure a dog that's exported and made forced to race, these dogs are, what are the conditions like in China? Let's just speak about China. These dogs are not allowed to sleep 20 hours a day like they would naturally
Um,
want.
so so the from what I've seen in some of the breeding kennels in China, obviously they would never let me into their breeding facilities. But from footage that I've seen when people have gone to collect the exported dogs for me, the top dogs, the young, fit, healthy dogs, the conditions aren't too bad actually.
Okay.
Because they have to keep them good because these dogs are thousands and thousands of
Yeah,
pounds.
that's
You
it.
know, you're talking. We paid £17,000 for one dog, but my friend, it wasn't the charity's money. My friend donated that. So you know, these dogs are worth thousands. It's when they start getting older. So we've rescued some in horrific conditions. One was at a meat market. She wasn't being sold for meat. She was being sold for breeding. Another one was just stuck in this little cage in a garden. So my Australian exported dog, she was 11 and a half when I rescued her, and she only had 20 months with me. And when we rescued her in China, she'd just had a litter of puppies at 11 and a
Oh,
half, and she had
wow.
mammary tumours. And so, you know, when they're young and fit, they're looked after to a
It's
degree.
when they wear out their usefulness, like you said.
Yeah,
That's
but they're still not treated as pets. But it's the same in racing kennels over here and in Ireland. You know, they're commodities. It's like, you know, if my phone broke now, I'd have to get a new one, and it's the same with greyhounds. If your greyhound breaks, you get a new one.
wow. That's just terrible. And so the your principal country where you rescue is China, but you've also rescued dogs from Vietnam. And
Yeah, we rescued a greyhound.
okay, and can you tell us when that was, and like, is it ongoing or it just happened that someone
It's
reached
it's
out?
no, it's really really hard to get dogs out of Vietnam. I think it's more dangerous in China. It's really hard. So on social media again, I seen a greyhound on the back of a moped in like a little wire crate, tiny little thing, and he was with two little mixed breeds, and the owner was hitting him on the head with a stick. And I contacted my friend who posted the video, and luckily she knew someone in Vietnam, and she went to the slaughterhouse and brought him for me. But it took months and months and months to get him here. And he actually passed away after 13, 14 months of being in the UK because his stomach was so bad. I think he had intestinal problems and stuff, and so he had to be put to sleep in the end.
Yes, but at least he finally knew love before he passed
Yeah, he
away.
got he got out. He got out.
Yeah. Oh my God. So and also you mentioned South Korea. What
hmm
situation was it like there?
I've never been to South Korea, but we've rescued greyhounds and some lurchers, and they've all gone to America. I think we've had two greyhounds here from South Korea in the UK. The rest have all gone to America, but they breed dogs in South Korea for meat. Um,
Yes.
so so it's a bit different. I don't know too much about South Korea, to be honest. You know,
But
I just agreed
do
to rescue them.
they have racing like they do in China or?
Apparently, I've never seen no footage of it, and greyhounds have been exported to South Korea, but I don't know too much about the
Okay.
tracks and stuff and the gambling because gambling in China is illegal, but dog
Mm,
racing's not illegal. So
go
yeah,
figure. And can I ask you, okay, I want to focus a little bit on adoptions because obviously, ultimately, this whole work and time and money is spent to hopefully get these dogs into forever homes.
Yeah.
And I noticed on your website that you only rehome dogs to families in the UK, and this to ensure that you can provide rescue backup for life for the dog and support the adoptive family, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
For overseas adoptions, you work with rescue partners in that country. Can you tell us a little bit more what countries you have partners in and that you can...
Okay, so America and Canada are the
Yes.
main ones.
Okay.
And that's because, I mean, people are desperate for greyhounds and whippets in Canada and America.
Okay.
So I'll only work with rescues that are established.
Yes.
They have policies on rehomings. They have policies on rescue backup. No euthanasia, policies for behaviour issues.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't rehome to someone in America that didn't have the rescue backup.
Right.
We get lots of inquiries from all over the world, even in China. People want to rescue dogs, which is great, but equally, I can't rehome a dog to someone that we can't support because for all the good intentions in the world,
Yeah.
dogs get returned to rescues,
Yes.
people's circumstances changed, and there's no way I'm rescuing a dog and leaving that dog on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very important question I always ask my guests when they do
Yeah.
adoptions. How do you ensure that, it's going to the right family? Because, some people might, seem like good people and they may have the good
Yeah.
intentions, but you want to make sure that dog is safe for life, right? So
Yeah, and also people see China dogs, feel sorry for them.
yeah,
I want to adopt one of them, but some of them have behaviour problems. They've never been in homes before, so usually they come to me, and I assess them all in the UK, or they go into very, very experienced foster homes where I'm still in the background with them,
right.
and they get assessed, and then we decide what homes would be suitable for them after they've had the home checks and their interviews and stuff.
And can I ask, how does one go about? Let's say I'm interested, I go on your website. Is there an application that I fill out there, or
We just ask people to send an email,
Okay.
then I would email them back or call them. But again, with COVID at the moment, we haven't been able to bring no dogs back to the UK since last January.
Right,
We've managed to book lots of flights, but then they've been cancelled. We've booked cargo planes, it's been cancelled. So since December, we've managed to get 50 dogs out to America and to Canada.
Wow.
But I've still got 240 odd dogs in China.
Waiting.
And I would never ever have rescued all these dogs if I knew for a second they'd all be left in China. Because, the rescuing's really easy. It's the aftercare, the costs.
Yes. And the cost,
making sure,
yes. They're,
Yeah, making sure they've got a good quality of life. I mean, some of our dogs have been waiting since 2019, and that's completely unacceptable. We need to get these dogs out.
yes. And it's the overhead is tremendous, right? Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about the costs of just
So-
keeping those dogs in China?
So one boarding kennels a month is £10,000. Then we pay the food on top. One vet bill that I had in the other day was £35,000.
Wow.
So I think people don't realise the cost. So it's to rescue one dog, it's at least between £2,000 and £4,000. That's just one, because you don't know what injuries they've got. A lot of dogs suffer with distemper, parvo, mange,
Yeah.
real horrible diseases,
Yeah.
and people eat these dogs as well.
Yeah.
So just the vet bills alone, our vet bills at the moment for everything is probably around £90,000, and that's why I couldn't take them dogs the other day, because if I had then we would go under.
Yeah, that's
We're just about keeping our head above water at the moment and just chipping away, because all the fundraising's been cancelled. and we had loads of events booked. You know, we're not a rescue that's lazy and just relies on people just giving their money. We work for that money as well. You know, we do lots of fundraising, lots of events, and it's all been cancelled. So, you know, ultimately that's had a massive
It's
effect
crippled
on us.
you. Yeah, it's crippled
Yeah.
you financially at this point. But going back to the adoptions, what can I ask? What partner you work with in Canada? Because I'm in Canada, I'm a little bit curious.
Yeah, it's Motor City Greyhound Rescue.
Motor City.
Yeah, Greyhound Rescue.
Okay, maybe I'll ask you to email me the name. Just I want to get it right, and I often
Okay.
put notes in the podcast. So in the show notes, I will.
Well, we've got. If you have a look at the website, it
Oh,
says
it does
partners.
name them? Okay,
Yeah, it
okay.
says rescue partners, and it's got them all down there
Are
as well.
they in Vancouver, or are they more in Ottawa, or do you have an idea? Okay, I won't ask you about that. I'll look it up, and I'll make sure that people. It's going to be in the show notes. And so essentially it works by email. If anyone has any interest, they email you and you take it from there, knowing that at this point you can't really adopt dogs out for the moment.
Yeah.
Hopefully the vaccination will, create the inoculation that we all need and we can go back to normal, but we're not there yet, at this point.
No.
And the costs involved in flying a dog out from China has doubled, tripled since COVID.
Absolutely.
Because as I understand it from other guests is that they used to be able to work with flight volunteers, and flight volunteers are very helpful. It does bring down the cost quite a bit. But now with COVID, you cannot use the same flight volunteers, and no one's traveling. That's the problem.
No.
And so now you're forced to pay for cargo flights, and those are
which is extortionate.
It's extortion. You're right, because I heard like a pallet that would have about 10 dogs, depending on the size. It's like 42,000 US, which is astronomical. So this is just to give viewers at home an idea that rescue is very hard, and COVID just made it that much harder.
Absolutely.
But speaking of COVID, I mean, it's done a lot of, it's wreaked havoc everywhere. It's put all the global economies on pause, and it's caused some people to lose their jobs. So some people have died from it. I mean, I think at last count, it was at 2 million that have passed away from this. So it's devastating, but there's been a beacon of light or hope, I would say, from China, because we heard in April of 2020 that the China's Ministry of Agriculture declared dogs as companion animals and explicitly removed them from the livestock list. They did make a post-COVID livestock catalog, and dogs are no longer on that list. Some people would argue that they were never on the list, but the fact remains that China's Ministry of Agriculture making that statement that dogs are considered companion animals was seen as a very positive thing. And it's probably the reason why the city of Shenzhen and then Zhuhai, on May 1st, they adopted this law, a complete ban on dog-cat meat in their cities. And it's a comprehensive ban because it's not just the sale of dog meat, it's the consumption. So that was seen as a very positive thing. What are your thoughts on these decisions? And
I just don't know how they're going to man it, really. There's no animal welfare law, so well, as we can see, they're still selling dog meat. Dogs are still being slaughtered. And it was the Chinese New Year, and that's where most of the dogs get killed.
Yeah.
So I just think it's easy to say. It's actions really speak volumes, and from what I've seen, nothing's been put in place. Nothing's getting done.
You're right that it's a statement. It's not a law. It's not a national law. It's not a national ban. And even when there's a law passed, the enforcement is crucial, because, you know, if you're not enforcing your laws, then, you know, like we've seen in Vietnam, there was a ban put in place in 1998 on cat meat. Like it was illegal to slaughter cats, and the reasons were just to curb the vermin infestation that the country was dealing with at the time. But that law was never honored. It was never enforced.
No.
And so that's the second piece of the puzzle. Even if it was a law, a national law, it has to be enforced. But some guests have said that it is a positive thing. It's kind of giving a blessing to cities and provinces to adopt this ban, because now they have kind of the national government saying, you know, dogs are companion animals. So it's kind of giving them a blessing to pass such laws. And so that's why Shenzhen and Zhuhai and Leixi are good examples of that. Whether it's being enforced, I don't know, like time will tell. But it's the reason why a lot of us were surprised that the Yulin Dog Meat Festival still took place in 2020, because when we heard that, we were like, oh my God, you know, such positive news. And then as you go into it and the details, you start to understand that it was just like a gesture more than, you know, anything concrete. So, and also I wanted to ask your opinion because, you know, in 2018, the US, after a lot of work from activists and some nonprofits in America, they were able to pass a ban on dog cat meat in the country, and it was a federal law, and it's HR 6720. And so the idea is a lot of the developed countries want to mimic that and to second that effort. And in my own country of Canada, we started a petition to say we want Canada to pass the same law, and the UK also. And so I think it was in 2019 that former DEFRA Secretary Michael Gove ordered the move in the summer of 2019, despite dog meat being a little bit rare in the UK. It's not a predominant thing. It was in an effort to match HR 6720 that was passed in the US. And it was unfortunately blocked by the Minister of Justice for fear of being culturally insensitive. And so this was a huge disappointment to many campaigners, not only the UK, but across the globe, because let's not say that HR 6720 is not a law intended to dictate to other countries like China what they should do, but it's more a statement to the world that, you know, that country's stance on dog meat, you know, dog cat meat. And so how did you feel when you heard the news that it was being blocked? Because many were hopeful that this would, you know, at least put a statement out there and support.
Well, I went to the conference in London when it was on.
Oh, okay.
About it. And I didn't even know there was a such thing, to be honest, that it wasn't law. I just assumed no one in the UK would ever eat dog or cat meat. I don't know if it's ever been reported. So I think it's really disappointing, but I'm not surprised, really. But luckily, at the moment, it's not a thing that we do over here.
No,
and the difference is we've got animal welfare laws. So that's the difference as well. I think that's the problem with China mostly. There's no animal welfare laws, so basically anyone can do what they want to an animal.
With, undeterred, you know, no consequences. So like you said earlier, it gives free range to anyone who's particularly cruel. I mean, we all have people that have no attachment to animals or any, you know, sentient beings. So,
and the problem with China as well, they have such ancient beliefs in like tiger bones help cure things, like the fur trade. You can, if you skin them alive, the fur's better, and just crazy stuff. So it's
and it's unsubstantiated.
Until there's animal welfare law brought in China, things unfortunately won't change. Yes, you've got younger generations coming in, and they're fighting against it, but equally, you know, human rights aren't great in China. They've got to be very careful.
Oh, I know. So, that's another problem.
You know, so there's only so much they can do as well.
But I think, are you hopeful that one day will end this dog cat meat trade as a whole, not just China as a whole? Like,
One day, I don't, it won't happen in my lifetime. I hope no animals get eaten. You know, that'd be the best. But
yeah,
you know, I'm not overly hopeful about the dog and cat meat
no,
trade, to be honest, because it's cheap meat. You know, if you eat meat and you're really poor and you've got a big German Shepherd dog,
yeah,
you know, you can have his coat and you can feed
yeah,
all your family.
yeah.
You know,
And
and
it's like that for some families. Yeah, absolutely. That's
yeah,
another part of it.
it's horrific.
Yeah,
I mean, our plan was to last year is to open our own shelter and start doing educational days.
yeah,
So inviting school children to the centre and their parents to talk about animal welfare, how you should treat animals,
yeah.
you know, how you should respect them. But again, COVID has had
I
such a negative
know.
impact. But
It's put a
eventually,
wrench in everything, eh? This
yeah,
COVID.
but eventually that's what we want to do is promote the welfare of animals and dogs in China. We have
Yeah.
so many Chinese people that help us,
Yes.
and honestly, they make me cry every time I see them because they're thanking us so much for helping.
Oh, yeah.
When these people are, you know, they live it every day. They live
Yeah.
and breathe it. When I'm in China, I actually feel quite depressed because I just know all the madness that's going on there, all the torture. And you know, these animal rights people live there, they breathe it, they see it every day.
Yeah. They
It must
witness
be
it.
absolutely horrific.
Yeah. And so that's another question I have is like your donors, are they mostly in the UK? Are they spread about? Is it mostly foreigners? Or are you starting to
Um,
see Chinese donate and
no Chinese actually,
no?
at all. And I think that's massively because a lot of them are not on Facebook because it's banned in
Right,
China.
right, right. So a lot of them
So I
don't
think
know about you.
social
Yeah.
media, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a massive thing. We get a lot of support from Canada and America.
Oh,
Um,
great.
yeah, the Canadians and Americans are fabulous. Also Australia.
Yes.
The Australians campaigners and rescuers feel a massive sense of responsibility because their government has allowed hundreds and hundreds of their dogs to go.
Yes.
So they are to blame. Ireland are to blame. You know, the whole racing industry is to blame
Yeah.
for letting these dogs go. We've been getting DNA done on the dogs that are rescued. And just today we've got results back from two whippets whose bloodline is an American breeder. You know, so it's big
Wow.
money in exporting these dogs. And it's not just sight hounds, it's all breeds.
Yeah.
Because even though we are a sight hound rescue, we have poodles, labradors, collies, shepherds. You know, I love all dogs, but
Yes.
my experience is greyhounds.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of support in Europe as well. And the one good thing about greyhounds that they've got going for them is they have a lot of support all over the world. It's like a big kind of cult almost.
Yes.
You know, there's a big following with greyhounds
Well, that's
because
good.
they're probably one of the most abused animals in the world, the greyhounds, with what they go through in every country.
Yeah,
So
that's
once you
right.
adopt one,
Yeah.
you know, you're kind of in it for life, really.
Yeah, that's right. And you said you rescue all sorts of dogs, of course, but I mean, you need to focus on these greyhounds because there are a lot of rescues doing work, but you know, your experience, your knowledge, you know about this, you know, more than anyone. So, of course, you're going to focus on that, and there's a lot of work for you. But can you tell us just a few, because I'm not too familiar with the galgos in Spain. I know they
Okay.
suffer terrible fate. They're
Yeah.
hunting dogs, as I understand.
Yeah, they're known as Spanish greyhounds.
Yeah.
They're very similar to greyhounds. Very very sweet. And they're used for hunting in Spain. It's horrific what they go through. And between 60 and 100,000 are killed every year still now. And we have DNA tested two greyhounds from Spain, like lurchers, and they've come back as galgo as well. So that's quite concerning if
Can you
galgos are
tell
being
us?
exported.
like what happens to like they're used for hunting, so once they are done with hunting season, what happens to them? Like what they say that they torture them, but you know, why would they do that?
Things have improved, but hunting season has just finished in Spain now, so lots of dogs are getting thrown out on the streets. They used to hang them a lot. That was really common in Spain, but they used to hang them so their toes would touch the floor. So it took them a long time to die.
But why would they do that? Just out of cruelty? Or...
Yeah, and out of punishment for losing. They also keep them like in like caves underground. So they just chain them up, and they'll have hundreds underground. They
underground?
Like in caves, kind of things.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you should look into it. They have They also engine train them, so they tie them to a vehicle, and the dogs have to run alongside them. Otherwise, obviously, they die. And China do this a lot as well. They have the greyhounds tied to cars and things.
To train them as part of the training.
Yeah, to build up the stamina to hunt.
Oh my god.
So galgos have quite a lot of stamina. But I mean, if you have a look on social media at Galgo del Sol,
yes,
it's run by a lady called Tina.
Okay.
She does amazing work. I work with her, and I'm sure she'd be happy to speak to you. They're really fabulous.
Well, that was
well.
part of my question, is if you had any guest suggestions, and you just gave me one. But
absolutely.
And what is her foundation called?
Galgo del Sol.
Oh, okay, Galgos del Sol. Okay, so
Yeah.
and she's obviously she can speak English. She's not just
She's English.
Okay.
She moved to Spain for a quiet life in the sun,
okay,
and found a galgo, and then
she wanted to retire peacefully, and then not
Yeah.
retire, but you know.
Yeah, but have an easier life.
Oh my God! And she did not.
The work she does is, it's on a par with China.
Yes.
It's really cruel.
It sounds terrible. And hunting season, you just said it just finished, and so we're February 6th. So when does it start? Like typically?
I'm not sure when it starts. I think it might be like in the summertime. I think it's about August, September.
Oh, wow.
But it ends on the 1st of February. So there's just galgos everywhere now.
And does Spain have animal welfare laws? I'm assuming
They do,
Okay.
but galgos used to be excluded from this because they're classed as working
as
animals.
hunting oh my God. Okay, poor them. And so I guess another question I have is usually for concerned animal lovers and people, everyday people like me, what actions would you suggest that we take that can help the cause, overseas in China or, in other parts of the world? Obviously, we've talked about petitions not being very effective, especially if it's not to your own government. But I said myself, donations would be a good way to help. Adopting, I guess, is another way we can help.
Yeah, adopting, fostering, awareness days. So when things are normal, doing awareness days, speaking to the public that know nothing about it.
Yeah.
Handing out leaflets. There's lots of things people can do.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest thing is raising awareness, really, and also being a bit mindful that places like China, you can't just bash China and boycott China and do this to China, and because some of the people that live there, they're so thankful for the people that work with them. And it's my friend Dodo, she saw some of the racist comments on Facebook, and it's really upset her.
Yeah.
Because she's one of the most beautifulest people I've ever met. She's got two beautiful children, a husband. She's got 8 dogs, cats. She takes in everything. And when it all come out about COVID and the wet markets, she phoned me up and she was sobbing uncontrollably because she couldn't believe what was happening in her country. So there's lots of things people can do. Being supportive, like you say, even £1, £2.
Yeah.
If you're that passionate about a cause, most people that support a charity usually support a few charities.
Yeah.
So it's an idea to, rather than give to one, just split it between the
Yes.
charities that mean anything to you, because honestly, just a couple of pounds a month makes so much difference when you add it all up with everyone else's.
Yes, yes. And I think that it's important, because we can't do the hard work. You've dedicated your life to this. And so
Yeah.
I go to work, I have a job, and, I don't have the time and the resources and knowledge to do this. So support the ones that you feel are doing good, honest work and that, you feel positive about. You don't have to give to everyone, but support some.
Yeah, support the one that means most to you, really.
Yeah, that you.
And it's,
Yeah.
and I think people have got to be mindful as well that most rescues do rescue work because they want to help the dogs, help the animals, whatever they're doing. And sometimes, I mean, I'll get bombarded with messages, can you help this dog, can you have this dog, can you do this?
Ugh.
And some people get quite shirty with me if I can't. And there is only so much people can do.
Yeah, exactly.
And people have sometimes got to remember that we are human ourselves. I've got 3 children under 5. I've got a house full of dogs.
God bless you. I sympathize. Yeah, it's a lot.
But we do what we can, and some people will get quite shirty, like I said. And it's that's not fair either.
No, it's not.
People have just got to have a bit more respect and just appreciate everyone's doing what they can.
That's it. And something else I would put out there, and I am pretty sure you would agree, is that stop the infighting between nonprofits. I mean, there's been a lot of that on social media, creating doubt on any organization and try to crusade people into, banishing that organization for whatever your belief is. If you don't know much about it, you don't have proof that someone did something or what they're accused of, you should stay out of it. And that's not helping the animals. That is for sure.
No, it's not.
It's not helping the animals. And so stay positive, stay respectful, and, supportive. And, give when you can. And if you can't share, raise awareness, that costs nothing except your time. That's the reason why I started the podcast, is I want to educate myself because I felt there was a lot of misinformation out there. And I was curious about a lot of things, like the history of this, how long has it been going on? Why are they doing this? Why the outright cruelty?
Yeah, I think the problem with China is as well, it's the lack of education, especially from the older people. So last year we went through probably the most horrific day I've ever been through in rescue. There was 30 greyhounds in a slaughterhouse. So we arranged with a vet. It was a vet that contacted us and asked us to help these dogs. We agreed. And we've got our own driver, but she insisted on using a driver that she knew of. And he went to the slaughterhouse to collect the dogs, and he could only get half of the dogs at one time. It was in the middle of the summer, and he put all in crates, and the slaughterhouse men did. Beijing was, so hot, no aircon, and by the time, it really upsets me, but by the time they got to the vet, 17 had died in the van of heat stroke, and the other few were pulled out. They died apart from one. So we rescued one dog out of 20, and
One
they must
dog
have died in the
survived.
most. They must have died in the most horrific way, because they all had heat stroke. They had all had bites on them because they were shoving them all in crates, and I was sent the videos when they were rescued, and they were all wagging their tails, all happy. The next video I saw was them all getting dragged out, all dead. And that's another thing. It's not even that people are cruel. Sometimes they're just so uneducated. The driver couldn't see anything wrong in how he's loaded these dogs.
So
and the vet actually had heart attack.
Had a
And
heart
she was
attack.
rushed to hospital. Yeah, she's okay now, but when they arrived at the vets, obviously she was pulling them all out, and she had a heart attack.
From the emotional shock.
Yeah, it was horrific. I didn't obviously post the footage because it was so bad. And that's the thing. It's lack of education as well. It's even the vets are so far behind.
Oh my
You know,
God.
one of the most biggest superpowers in the world, but they're so behind in other things. Like the vet work is nowhere, not a patch on the vets over in the UK.
Yeah, that's very true, and it's lack of education, but it's also a generational issue, right? So like a
Yeah,
lot of the older generation, they were taught to believe certain things, like the myths we were talking
yeah,
about, that dog meat is good for this, it'll keep you
yeah,
warm and the cold winter days, and somehow
yeah,
it'll keep you cool during the hot summer days. I mean, it's all like, it sounds like hocus pocus, but when something has been ingrained in you, it's hard to, take that away, like to detach yourself from that. And I think it's the commodification of sentient beings that is horrific, and it happens everywhere in the world. I mean, we are guilty. We have meat industries everywhere in every country.
yeah,
And when you take the time to look at what is happening, I think we'd have a lot more vegans.
yeah,
If people were actually taking the time to look at, what a cow, what a pig goes through. But in China in particular, it's the desensitization that happens because they
hmm,
were born and raised in this, and you see your parents do this for a living. You're not going
yeah,
to have any issues with it. You're going to think it's normal. It's like
yeah.
normalized violence, and so it's going to take time.
I
But
mean, I went to one slaughterhouse, um, and the guys at the slaughterhouse had unloaded the truck to get the dogs off, because the lady that I was with was going to rescue some. And
okay,
one of the men at the slaughterhouse, he seemed ever so lovely. I didn't know he was a slaughterhouse worker. I had no idea.
wow,
And he was stroking the dogs. He was putting coats on the dogs, not really making a fuss. They were kissing him, and then within an hour, he was at the back killing them. Yeah, and it
wow,
was,
that
you
is
know,
shocking. Yeah.
yeah, it just blew my mind really because I couldn't believe what I was watching, and the way they use the metal tongs to drag the dogs off by the neck,
Oh.
and they just fall. It's horrific, and that's the thing. They don't even look at them as animals. It's just they just need to
A,
make a living.
a
So
means to an
the
end.
quicker they slaughter them, the quicker they can sell them.
Yeah, it's a
It's
means
kind of
to
as
an
simple as
end
that.
for them. It's like
Yeah,
a thing. Like, they don't
yeah,
seem to understand that this person has the same feelings as you. They hurt the same. They, feel the same pain as us. So I guess time. We're gonna have to be patient, and people that think it's gonna end overnight, well, they're in for a bad surprise because it's not gonna end
yeah,
overnight. But we have to keep at it and can't get discouraged, and we have to just pursue our goals, and that is to,
yeah.
bring about the end of the suffering, that's unnecessary. So
Absolutely.
I thank you so much, Carrie. You've been wonderful, and for people at home, you don't know, but we had to go through hoops, a lot of hoops, to get this audio and video working. But I'm very grateful, and definitely we'll post the links to your Candy Cane
Okay,
Rescue in the description box. We'll make sure that it
fabulous.
goes out there, and that you hopefully will gain more supporters, and be able to carry out your work, because I'm
Okay.
sure you're eager to get back there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you so much, Carrie, and I wish you all the best, and we'll definitely keep in touch, and
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
let you know when the podcast will be released.
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
bye.
take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.